This is Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield, a podcast that resources families and friends with tools to have important conversations about mental and emotional health. This show is sponsored by Mayfield Counseling Centers, helping you find clarity, hope, and purpose. Here's your host, Trever Shirin.
Thank you for joining us on Candid Conversations. We are glad to be joining you again, still in the construction of our new studio. Keep your eye out for new shows that we're going to be announcing in the next few weeks through Mayfield Counseling Centers.
It's going to be exciting. You get to experience some of our fantastic counselors that work here, have a lot to offer, different perspectives and ideas, and it'll be fun.
Whether you're in counseling, out of counseling, never want to go to counseling, or between counseling sessions, we want to be able to give you some resources and some tools that you can use to help you live emotionally and mentally healthier lives.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So today we are continuing our conversation about the steps of encouragement, which we created live for you 2 episodes ago.
Right. Was that kind of on-air aha moment?
Yeah, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah, this makes sense. Let's do a series.
Let's do it. That sounds good.
Last week we talked about validation, and the next step is
affirmation.
So, Dr. Mayfield, what is affirmation, and how is it different than the other 4 steps or other 3 steps?
Yeah, I'm getting lost on the steps here, but it's interesting because I'm going to give a simple definition, but I'd love to unpack it. As I've just done some research and just really understanding the word affirmation, it's basically this idea of noticing truth.
Noticing truth.
Yeah. So noticing truth in somebody, calling out truth, is the most basic definition of affirmation.
So, like, your hair is brown.
Yes, or your hair is brown and it looks really nice.
Okay, so that extra piece
is speaking the truth.
Okay,
right.
Yeah.
So it's like I think the best way to think about it is it's speaking truth over people. It's it's the noticing truth and then the speaking truth, and it seems very simple, and maybe it is. But in our culture, like we talked about last week, and alluding to kind of our culture is all messed up on this whole validation thing.
Yeah. I
think it's the same can be said about affirmation too.
Oh yeah. Is
how do we recognize truth? What is truth? When it comes to, I was talking to somebody, one of my clients today, arguing about, we weren't arguing, but there was an example. They said that this person in their life could call that black and it's actually blue, and they would argue until day is long that that's black.
Yeah.
But the truth is it's blue. So how do it's that kind of thing, I think, is what affirmation really comes out to be.
So if validation was you're doing that thing right, or you ran 4 times, like pointing out that whatever you're noticing.
Sure.
Affirmation is communicating something a little bit deeper, it sounds like.
Yeah, you're like the noticing or the validation. If you're running, what would you say?
4 times.
Right, good job. You're running 4 times. You're 5, but your form is really good, right? And so now it's calling out the specifics of their running.
Yeah. So not only is what you're doing good, but how you're doing it is also good.
Right. I think that would be the affirmation. I think on the very unidimensional way, your hair is brown. That is calling out truth because your hair is brown.
Right. As long as it's brown.
As long as it's brown.
Bear with us here.
But I think, the affirmation on kind of a multidimensional level is calling out that truth.
Yeah.
Of, hey, I noticed you got a haircut. It looks great. Right. It's the noticing of the haircut and the commenting that, hey, it actually does look good.
I like it.
Right. I like it.
It looks good with your head.
Right. it
all of the examples.
It crowns your head well. Right, I know. But as I was thinking about this today and also doing some research, how often do we fail to speak truth?
Oh, I'm sure constantly.
Right. I was speaking at a conference earlier today and just talking about the fact that, we're talking about teenagers. How many lies come at our teenagers on a daily basis through media and marketing and social media and their friends and that kind of stuff. And so it's, I think affirmation is calling out the positive, true things that we see in our kids. And I've had parents time and time going, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it breaks my heart because it probably wasn't done for them.
Yeah.
And so how do we model that for each other on a community level?
Yeah. So for the parent or the individual who right now says, that's all well and dandy, I understand the why, but I don't know how. Mm-hmm. How can we help them in this episode to be able to start this process? What are the next few steps?
I think the biggest thing is, and this is not creepy, so don't go there. Don't think that. But
okay.
Like when your kids are asleep, and you want to encourage you want to speak truth over your kids, but you don't know how to.
Yeah.
There's something powerful just about sitting in the doorway and with a notepad, and just going, okay, what things are true about my kids? They're kind. They're beautiful. They're creative. And you just begin to write a list of key words or key things that are truth about your children. You can do this with your spouse. You can do this with a friend. And then you're starting to train your brain in a lot of ways to see them in that way, to speak over them in that way. Yeah. And I think a lot of times it's calling out things that the individual wouldn't necessarily see or call out themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's just it's a practice, I mean, Dr. Leaf talks about this idea of, growing new neural pathways and the way that we use our mind, and I think for us, this is a new neural pathway that we have to utilize.
It's a new way of thinking. I'm thinking also of like how sometimes it can be really hard to invest in a more intimate way with a person where that's not the norm in the relationship. So if you've never encouraged or affirmed or validated somebody, it can be really hard to just start all of a sudden. And one thing, and this is really tailored to me, but I'm sure there's some other person that is like me, or you can get something from this.
Sure.
One thing you can do is you can send that phrase, whatever you've written on your piece of paper, in a text, and then send some sort of GIF with it. And it is GIF, not GIF. Which is also my opinion, but also truth. But what the GIF does is it kind of just softens it and gives a humorous feel to it. It lightens the intimacy, just enough, and it's fun to be able to find a GIF that kind of goes along with what you're trying to say. And so if you're saying like you're super strong, send a GIF of the Hulk or something, right? Or
practical stuff,
something practical. And I think that's a really, really good first step. That's easy.
Well, I think it's like this. And everybody has this friend who you've maybe known each other for 6-8 months, and you're getting close, you're getting to know them, and they give you a hug after they leave, and hey, love you. And you're sitting there going, okay, we're not that close,
right?
But I appreciate that. Thank you.
I get the sentiment.
Right, I get the sentiment. And it's a little awkward.
Yeah.
Right. But they're trying to express in their best way they know how much they appreciate you.
Yeah.
Right? But let's say you fast forward and you've had that friend for now 16 years and you're tight.
Yeah.
Right. You don't even think about it.
Right.
Hey, thanks. Good to see you. Love you.
Yep.
And you're on your way, and it doesn't feel. What'd you say?
Right.
Right back at. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Or just, I know.
Yeah. And I think that this idea of speaking truth it might feel that way.
Yeah.
To start off, right?
It's awkward.
It is awkward, because we are choosing to see people deeper than just the surface, and sometimes that's vulnerable. Yep. Sometimes that's got to have a level of trust that we want, but we have to take the first step in those things. And I think it also doesn't need to be reciprocated.
No. And it also doesn't have to be secretive either. I mean, you could literally go up to a person and say, somebody that you have a relationship with.
Not a stranger.
And say, hey, I was listening to an episode of Candid Conversations. They were talking about encouragement. I'm going to try really hard over the next few weeks to encourage you more. And then you've already laid the groundwork, and some of that awkwardness will go away.
Right.
And it's a pretty benign statement to make as well.
Well, I also think it's going to be awkward if you make it awkward in some ways.
Yeah, very much true.
Right? But also I think it's a big deal to go, if somebody were to do this for me, how would I respond?
Yeah.
And kind of put yourself in their shoes. Because I think that's the thing is a lot of times we don't know how to do it because it's never been done for us or modeled to us.
Which can be really sad.
Yeah.
Just to recognize. And maybe you need to sit with that in yourself and sit with, maybe you haven't been affirmed the way you wanted to be affirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to some teenagers earlier today just about how self-reflection is one of the most powerful tools to growth and change that we have.
Yes.
We're willing to sit with ourselves and to reflect on how we're feeling and what we're thinking. And this may be a moment that you need to take some time and reflect on, I really wish that my dad would have affirmed me more.
It's interesting, and I'm going to throw this out there. This is kind of a positive psychology thing. So there's some people that don't like positive psychology. I don't find
they're negative psychology people.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with just a positive psychology if it's beneficial, right? But you can actually search on Google positive affirmation statements.
Oh,
right. And I've done this, and it feels really weird, but there's something about the ingraining of truth into our minds. That I have clients that I work with that are struggling with identity, they're struggling with whatever it might be, to take these positive affirmation statements and look themselves in the eyes in the mirror and repeat a certain amount of statements over and over again until they can actually look themselves in the eyes and do it. Because how many times have you looked at yourself in the mirror and you're like,
right.
Yeah, I'm not
every morning before my shower,
right? I don't like
afterwards. I'm like,
yeah. I don't like what I see, or I don't like. I'm uncomfortable. And it's like, well, you're looking at yourself, and so if you can begin to give yourself positive affirmation statements and hold eye contact with yourself, and begin to believe it, it starts to lay that foundation of comfortability, so that when you do it for somebody else, it's not a sheepish, statement. Yeah, it's awkward. Oh man, it's awkward.
Yeah, definitely. That may be the hardest person to affirm sometimes is yourself.
So there's the challenge, listeners. Find some positive affirmation statements. Maybe we'll link some to our Candid Conversations on our Facebook page. But try to find ways to stretch yourself. Yeah,
and I think there are probably some people listening to this that have been thinking like, yeah, I've got this. I'm a really good encourager. I'm the best encourager that I know. And
it's a little prideful.
And I think my encouragement to you would be how good are you at self-affirming? Mm-hmm. Because I know that there are a lot of individuals who are deeply hurt and wounded inside and don't feel comfortable with who they are, who can give some of the best encouragements. And the two aren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes we think that they are, where you can't give really good encouragements if you aren't secure as yourself, and that's just not true.
No, I think a lot of times we project what we want.
Yeah.
If you think about it, in the adverse way, right? If somebody's done a lot of blaming, they're probably mad at themselves. Mm-hmm. But in this way too, I think we project what we want as well. And for those of us that thrive off of words of affirmation, as I do, it's not this prideful, like I need to be told how good I am.
Right.
Right. Because that's narcissism right there.
I'll still hear it.
Greatest, right? Yeah. I'll still listen to it. But it's the idea of, do you notice?
Yeah.
And I think that's where affirmation comes in. Do you notice?
Yeah.
Do you notice what makes me me and the truth in that?
Yeah. Not just what I'm doing, but me.
Yeah. And that's, I think, lays the foundation then for, builds on the foundation for encouragement and edification. But like validation is kind of the surface level. This is the next step down. And so you have to take stock of the relationships that you're in.
Yeah.
And is there vulnerability, security, and safety and trust in that before you lay it out?
Yeah. Is this a relationship where we've made it to this point yet? Mm-hmm. Or maybe you just need to hang out in validation a little bit more.
Maybe.
Or maybe you're in a relationship that really ought to be in edification, but you are staying in validation.
Well, and for many of you, edification is a totally new vocabulary word that we'll talk about in a couple of weeks.
Yep. I'm excited
to do it. It's the new. It's different.
Yeah. And I hope that if you get nothing else out of the cumulative hour and a half that we'll be talking about encouragement, that you just get the idea that there is more to encouragement than meets the eye, and that there are different ways to look at how we're doing this process of encouraging than maybe we've thought of before. And I know for myself, I've never spent so much time contemplating the intricacies of encouraging.
And I think if we were to do this well as a society, a lot of the ills that are happening would probably go away. Right.
And to your point, I've been saying for years that the best way to combat lies is with truth. And I think that's so true of identity and purpose and who a person is. And this might be getting a little bit ahead of where we are, but if we're able to speak truth to somebody in a little way, it may not do it at first, but over time, that begins to become the truth and begins to replace the lies that may have been held onto for a long time.
I wonder if we could throw the steps of encouragement into our story cycle.
Oh, yeah.
And see what comes out of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We might add that to the end of this series and post it up online, which would be really interesting.
Yeah,
so
it would be.
Cool.
Any final items that we haven't covered yet about affirmation before we jump into encouragement next week?
No, and I think, if our listeners are picking up on it, these two topics, they're kind of hard. We won't think about them very much, so they're kind of hard to fill 24 minutes with because we've really not put much effort, historically, to talking about these things. And I find it fascinating myself. Going, well, what else do we need to say about this?
Right.
Well, we're really trying to tease it out. We're trying to not stretch it out or prolong it, but just trying to figure this out more in a depth. And I think it's fascinating that, in your education, my education, we really haven't given much thought to this.
No.
So I think last tidbits is just, can you start noticing truth? Just in the world around you in your own life.
Yeah.
Before, and I think just like, as we build new neural pathways towards positivity and those kinds of things, when you start to pay attention, it's okay. So here's an analogy real quick and I'll be done.
Yeah.
But, you just bought a 2015 Malibu, right?
I did.
Right?
I did.
How many Malibus do you notice on the road now?
Actually, this is the only car that this hasn't happened with.
Really?
Really?
That's fascinating.
I know.
Okay. So just through my analogy.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm so
Appreciate
sorry.
it,
I wanted to be honest, but I also...
But you think about it. You buy, so let's say we bought a Honda Pilot about 10 years ago.
Right.
I started noticing all the Honda Pilots.
Right.
Before I didn't notice any Honda Pilots.
Yeah, so that's the way it's supposed
to go, right? But I think that's the same thing with truth, right? We start noticing truth in smaller ways, and we start seeing truth in bigger ways as we go through our life. But it takes a cognitive effort to begin to recognize it in ourselves and maybe our situations, and then we go, wow, that's beautiful. There's some truth there, there's some truth there. Let me speak it, let me affirm it, let me bring it out. And then it begins to change our outlook.
Yeah, the greatest artists and poets and seers of beauty in the world did not always see the beauty the way they did at the end of their story,
right?
At the beginning.
Yep.
And I think, there's beauty to the journey.
Yep, there is.
I hope you take the first few steps into that journey or continue to take the steps if you're already in the midst of it.
Or reevaluate.
Yeah,
yep.
Reflect a little bit.
Yep, see you next week.
Thank you for joining Candid Conversations. If you would like more information, you can email candid@mayfieldcounseling.com or call 719-452-4803.